Hi everyone. Good evening. Please just indicate. Oh, Sugar, you're here. Please just indicate if you can hear me. And if it's possible, could you try to inform the others on Slack? So, guys, what I'm going to do is this. I'm not going to spend time waiting. Um, I'll just go ahead to start answering the questions that are there, so that I'll show you what we'll be working on towards the end, and then we could see how we program the work and start working. How is the program going? How is it going? Who is talk? Guys, please could you indicate? I want to know. I want to make sure that you guys are getting me. Can I go ahead? I was asking how far, how is the program? All right, Felix, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to pull to the question. There is one pertinent question here. It's just one of it, and I'm going to try to answer that. Uh, so we have one question here. Um, the question is why. Uh, okay, why can't I echo out errors in OOP, unlike in procedural PHP? That's the first one. And the answer is you can actually do that. Like you can actually echo out errors. Everything you can do in procedural programming, you can do in OOP. But the thing is just that you have to you want to structure your work. So instead of echoing out something, you return the thing so that you can use it in other places. That is why most of the times you will not see echo most of the time in object-oriented PHP. And then somebody is asking again, the same person, can you brush the header function a bit? Basically, in the case of the header function, what the header function basically does, one of the main thing it does is used in redirecting you to different pages. For example, you want that, okay, when somebody has successfully logged in, it should send the person to the index page or to the dashboard. You use the header. And let me see, I had a file here called header. Okay, Sims is not here. So what you do is, okay, for example, let me just create a file called header.php. Let me try to enlarge my screen so you guys can see very well. All right, so this is a file, right? And I'm going to redirect to two different pages based on some content. All right, so I'll say, let's say action is equal to, let's say view. Let's say we want block, for example, right? And I'm going to redirect the user based on this action, right? So I'll be like, okay, if action is equal to block, then I should redirect the user to the block page. So to redirect, I use the header function. And you see, um, there are two special case header calls. The first is it starts with HTTP. The second is special case with the location. And this is what we'll be using, the header with the location. Not only does it send this header back to the browser, but it also returns a redirect. Okay, so this header is used to redirect. Now, what it takes in is, firstly, it's going to take in the location in which you are redirecting to, right, and followed by a column. Now, after a column, you have the path to the file where you are redirecting to. So in this case, I'm going to block.php, right, and I'm just going to put the relative path the way it is. So block.php. This one is going to redirect me to block.php. So the header function takes in the location. Now it has other parameters that you can pass in, something I don't want to talk about right now. Okay. So this is basically how you are going to redirect. Now let's take the else. Okay, so if it's not blocked, then let's say it's the index rather. So index.php. That is how you are going to use in redirecting. Redirecting is like, uh, uh, how do I put it? It's like sending the user to another web page. Okay, so let me try to run this from the browser. Um, Localhost /learning I think it's bawash /header.php. And let's see what we get here right now. So you see that we are redirected to the blog page. If you actually see up here, our blog. Now, if I come here and I change this, right? Let's see what we will get. I come back here, localhost /learning bawash /header.php. And when I click on enter, you see in this case, let me see, for redirect for header is okay. This is supposed to be else. Sorry, I don't want to take another one. I just want to have two things. So that if we redirect this, it is not blocked, so it loads the index page. Okay, that is basically what the header does. The header is used to send the user to the appropriate page based on his action. So this action could literally be, let me show you an example here. Let's say user action, right? And don't mind whatever is here. So you said if it is set post block delete, then you see that I am able to use the header to send the user to a particular page. That is how you use the header function. To the person who asked this, hopefully this is clear. Hopefully it does explain that. Okay, the last one will be, if we can only access private properties in its class or method, do we need to only extend uh, the class it is in order to access them? Okay, this is I think access. the aspect of access modifiers in object-oriented programming. Now we have the private. Let me go back to it. Let me go back to it. Um, Please, again, you are not going to look at this code at the moment. I just want to show you something. So basically, we have the private. We have the protected. Let me create a different file for that. Uh, access PHP, and I'm going to just create a simple class here, class called person. And what I want to do, I want to define some methods, some properties. So I have private name, I have private age, I have private gender. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is how you define private properties. Now, what happens is, for me to be able to access private properties, I need to use mutators and accessors, right? So if I don't have mutators and accessors here, I will not be able to access these properties anywhere, whether out of this page or even in this page. You need to use mutators and accessors, which is what we call getters and setters, like function, get name, right? And you return the name, function, set name, ah, sorry, set name, uh, something like that. And then you have maybe get age and set age. It is only through these methods that you are going to be able to access these properties. Now let's test it out and you see something. So I'll also define a constructor here. Function. Constructor is like the initial method that is going to be called when we instantiate this class. So I want to be able to instantiate the class with some name and yeah, kind of. So I use a constructor, use a construct keyword, you pass in the argument. So let's say gender equal to gender, right? Now, let's now go to the aspect of, let me see, what's the problem here? Let's go to the aspect of private properties now. Now, if I define a new class, say class person is equal to new person, and I pass in Andrew, I pass in age 24, 23, and gender male, right? Now, basically, if I say, if I try to get the person's name, like person uh, name, right? This is normally how you're supposed to be able to access the properties and methods of a class when they are public. Now, if I try to run this script, PHP access.php, let's see what we get here. Okay, we get this uncaught access, cannot access private property, right? Yes, because it is private, right? And even within the class, we cannot access it. Now, if this was set to public, right, you will be able to get that, like you get the name here, right? Now, how then do you access private properties and method? Like I said, you use the accessors and mutators, these getters and setters. So if I could say get name, right? And this was private, this is going to work, right? You see that it returns the name. That is what private visibility does. It makes it impossible for you to access the properties and methods of a particular class without defining accessors and mutators. It is an aspect of security. Now you have protected. It is almost the same, but you can actually be able to access it within this class, and the class that will extend it. Then for public, you can access it anywhere on your application. That is what yeah, I think that's the answer to your question. To whoever asked this, I think I'll try to clarify. To the next, right? Um, what I want to do right now is I just want to show you something about SQLite. I had not actually worked on that before, so it had to take me some time to prepare something. So SQLite is, I can say it's really similar to MySQL, except that it's light version, right? You don't literally need a server to connect to it before you're able to work. So SQLite, it comes in the form of like a file, right? You just have a file that you can store data to it and retrieve data with the same SQL code, right? So in this case, you don't need a different language to actually write data or manipulate data into an SQLite database, right? The only difference, one of the difference is that not the only, one of the difference is that SQLite is serverless. It doesn't need a server, and also it is just a normal file that ends with .sqlite, and you can read data just like you're using CSV, right? But the advantage of SQLite is that at least it is relational and you can store data just like you store in my SQL database. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to show you some simple scripts that are written. Now, you don't necessarily need to have the SQLite file created. Once you try to establish a connection to the SQLite file, if it does not exist, then it's going to be created. Now, let me show you an example. This is an SQLite file, and I've used VS Code to install the extension that can help me open the file. So you see that in this SQLite file, I have a table, one table, and it's called customers, and I have one row inside. So this was actually inserted with normal PHP and yeah, SQL. Now let me show you how that looks like. Um, I'm going to go through it. So if you want to establish a connection to an SQLite file or to an SQLite database, you use the new SQLite 3 keyword. This is a class, all right? So this class, you can actually access it in here. Let me copy the link and paste so that you guys can actually see. So I just sent the link to the channel right now, okay? Um, what this does is that it establishes a new connection. Now, let me just do that again. Like, okay, so what we want to do, we want to create a connection to an SQLite database. I'll create another file for that, SQLite.php. And okay, what we want to do is, okay, first thing, let's use the database, right? So how do you connect to an SQLite database? Just like how you use con is equal to uh, MySQLi underscore connect or new MySQLi. That is the same thing you do in um, SQLite connection. So the DB, you use a new keyword and SQLite 3, right? Because that's kind of the latest version. And you pass in the name of the file you want to connect to. So for example, if my file name was, uh, let's say our database wants to be bawash.sqlite, right? This is how you establish a connection to the SQLite file. What happens here is if this file does not exist, it gets created. Now, let's just check. If there was an error, right? If there was an error in the connection, then we should just echo out the error, right? Echo db, and then there is this keyword or there is this function last uh, error message. This gets the error message that was established in case there was some kind of an error during connection. So if I hover over it, okay, let me just use the S keyword and just just echo this out, right? And I'll try to clear this right now. Clear this, and I want to run this script PHP. What's the name of the file? SQLite.php. And I click on enter. Let's see what happens. Okay, you see opened database successfully. And if you notice, I have another file here that has been created. Now, what was the name? You have bawash.sqlite, and it's basically empty right now, right? So right now I have established a database connection, right? Yeah, that is just like how you use fopen to open a CSV file. That is how you use it in a SQLite. Now, the next thing is, okay, let me try to insert some data into the file. So in this case, now I'm going to change this to a function because I want to use a function, right? So I'll say function, uh, let's say establish SQLite connection, and I'll pass in, uh, yeah, the file, because the file, and what I want to do is the same amount of code. Like this code could just be copied and pasted, right? So the same code goes in. But in this case, since it is a function, we are going to return the DB. What does this DB actually return? So DB is equal to new. It's going to return the connection string to this SQLite database, right? So that we can use it. Now, how do we have created this function, right? How do we call it? So I could just call uh, establish database connection, and then I pass in the name of the database that I want to establish. So this one could be called bawash. It's supposed to be a string. Bawash.sqlite. SQLite. And basically that is it, right? So instead of writing that script that we wrote before, this is now a function. And if I run this function, we still have the same thing, and it has established now a connection to this file. What is the advantage of this over the first one we wrote? Now, the first one we wrote will always need to write that script again if we want to use it in a different file. But in this case, now that we've defined a function, we can import this file, right, and use it somewhere else and just call the name of this function. Okay, so now that we have this, I want us to create a table, right? Let me first of all define a close connection, and that is a close connection function. What I want to do is function, I want to create a database or create table. Function, right? Create a table, right? And this is a lot to actually handle, but I'm just going to explain it right now. Now, this is basically a function. and this function takes in the DB, right, and the table name that I want to create and the columns I want to create, then the primary key. This is just some sort of, yeah, an advanced way to do things, because we could literally create table manually, like create table, then give the manual table name. But in this case, what this one does is these columns, we are going to pass them in as an array. Okay, so now we see that is the same SQL, right? Create table if not exist, right? That is in the case if the table does not exist, then let's create it. What if it exists? Then let's not create it, right? Now, then we say table name. Now, let me show you the script, right? Let's say we wanted to create a table called users, right? It will be like, okay, SQL is equal to create table if not exist, then we pass in the table name called users, then we pass in the various column like user ID, username, user account, then we define the primary key and all of that, right? Now that is going to be like how should we call it? Yeah, it's going to be difficult if we have several tables to create without wanting to manually do things. So what we need to do is, okay, we'll just define the columns like columns is equal to, we pass in an array and we pass in the column name, say ID, name, account, right? I don't want this to be capital letters. Account, then name, then ID, for example. Okay, now that we have these columns, we also want that the primary key should be the ID, so we could define it as well, right? Then we call now this function, right? Now let's see what this function does. So for the columns, it's going to look through each of these columns and pass them in here, right? Um, let's see. Yeah, that's what it does. And okay, let's call the function right now. Create table. Then we pass in the DB, which is the database connection, and we pass in the table name. We call it, let's call it students. Then we pass in the columns, then we pass in the key, right? And this will basically just do the thing for us, right? Like it should do it. Let's run this script. And which error do we have? We have table successfully created. Now, if I go back to the Bawash and I refresh this SQLite, oh, which file did it open? Let's see. Okay, it actually used by this one. So let me just delete some of them so that you actually see it in action right now. So I've deleted all the files and I will run this, right? So I have open database and table created, and then you see this test.sql. This is what we deleted, but it's back, right? And if you notice this, you have students table, right? And there's literally nothing, but you have the column, the ID, the name, and the account. That is how you establish a database connection and create table with SQLite. You may want to insert data, which you can also do, right? Let me just end this and define another function called insert data function, insert into SQLite, right? Just the name of the function. And I'm going to pass in an array for the data, right? Uh, well, I'm going to also pass in the connection, the table name. Mm, yeah, literally the same thing happens here. We pass in the table name, we pass in the columns we want to insert, we also pass in what the values. And I mean, it's literally the same. Now, the only thing that we you might want to let me try to simplify this right now, assuming that we don't know all of this at the moment. Deactivate this, assuming that we don't know any of this at the moment, right? What we first of all want to do, what is this? Globally, um, we first of all want to have a connection. So I will say DB, and then I'll call the function to connect. So establish database connection, then the name of the database. It's called test.sqlite, right? Good. Now, since we have this, let us also write our SQL, right? And our SQL is the same. Insert into students, the ID, the name, the account, then the values should be this, right? Uh, this is normal SQL. Then we have to execute this. So we can say result or query, let me call it query, is equal to use the DB. Then there is this exec function that is called, and I'll pass in the SQL. What does this exec function have? So it executes a resultless query, right? Since we are inserting, we don't need a result, right? And that's basically it. Then if the query was successful, we do stuff like this, right? And let me try to call this function, set SQLite, and let's run this and see. SQLite, you see records created successfully. When we come to this and refresh this database, we have this data. So you use the same SQL code, like the same. The only difference is at the level of you establishing a connection. Right, that is the only thing. I use exec instead of DB query. Yeah, that's basically it. So you could go further reading this for SQL. I just send the link to you guys. You can actually um, go through it and see where handy it can become. But most of the time, just know you are going to use my SQL, my SQL, because SQLite it's good, but it's light and it's not built for heavy applications. All right. Okay, so that's basically it for SQLite. Since I sent you guys a link, you can do your best to go through it. I also try to push this one for SQLite on GitHub so that you guys can actually see, because I had this bunch of functions that I wrote here already that could do job for you, right? You have the insert, you have the select, you have the update, you have delete and create table, close connection, open connection, and so on. We created the functions already. So that's basically it, guys. And yeah, you guys take your time to go through it and so on. Yeah, if you have a question, feel free to ask, please. And then while you're asking your question, there's something I wanted us to work on, and let me show you that. So I have this simple website. I call it a website. I have this simple website. Yeah, let me call it website. It's for, yeah, it was actually for it's actually for a certain community, and they have this ideas that had to do some small backend, which had to do block, right? Blocks, let this thing load. Blocks, and when I click on view more, I am able to see a particular block, and this is for the normal user, right? you're able to see all of this. For the one that you have view more and these stuffs, like clicking on it and going to stuff, they are actually coded with PHP. There are some static contents here also, right? So what I want us to be building will be this blog page, right? So that we can add blog, we can delete blog. So let me go to the part for that. So backend, and there is this funny page, you know, uh, when it comes to admin backend, most of the time beauty doesn't even help, but it's okay. But front end developers can help this. When we'll be working on this, we'll actually redesign it. So I have this and I can log in, right? You see this, and let me get rid of this. So you see, this is the back end for the admin, right? He is able to see the total number of users in the system. He's able to see the total number of posts. He's able to add blog post, right? Which is this. I'm passing the title. Let me autofill this, right? Autofill and passing some content. Let me see. WS. And let me see. So I have this, and when I click on submit, it creates the post for me, and you see the total number of posts here increase. And if I go to the home page or the blog page, localhost slash learning slash bawash, and you go to blog, I see this block as well, right? The image did not load, probably because I did not configure the image folder well. So you see this block, and when I click on view more, it actually loads the same block, and yeah, everything about it. I can also manage posts. When I click on this post, I have an admin panel where I can see all the posts, right? I can edit the post, right? I can delete the post as well. All right. So that's basically what we are going to be building. Um, yeah, from now till the project phase. You can go further to doing a lot of stuff, right? But also notice that if let me see, I don't know if oh, I did not handle that. So if I try to access this on a different page, like let me try to use another account. Okay. Okay, so trying to use another account, if I go to, I hope this does not freeze, localhost forward slash PHP, my admin, oh sorry, learning forward slash bawash forward slash backend. And I click on this, it loads this. If I try to access all posts, .php, I have this, right? It's not been worked out. But if I try to access the dashboard, PHP, is that how they spell dashboard? Dashboard. Um, I also have this. Probably, what we are going to do is we have to secure all of these routes, like all of them, so that if anybody tries accessing it, we should get this unauthorized message telling the user that, oh, you have to be logged in. Let me see if there is any of the page that has been implemented. I don't think so. So I could literally just try to figure it out here. Mm, see, so all post and okay. So if set uh, section at username. I don't know if it's username. Then we can do all of this. So all of this should be inside. Let me see. We set this and do all of this here. Like um, so I could literally just close this one right down here. Right, PHP. Uh, this right. Yeah, we could do this and let me send the user to which page like that. Index.php. Or there is this page called unauthorized, I think. Uh, unauthorized PHP. Hopefully that should work out. I don't even know the page where I implemented this. So you have this page that is supposed to load, not this time, blah blah blah, access forbidden. So we will implement all of this throughout our work. Okay, so I just took this time to show you guys what we are going to be doing now, and we are going to use object-oriented programming. Yes. For example, you have the account, and the account has a user class, right? The user can be able to log out. The user can be able to get, like, we can get all users from the system. We can get a particular user. We can create a user. We can log in. Then we have these accessors and mutators, because all our methods and properties, or all our properties here are set to private. Okay. We also have the block, right? And we have accessors and mutators. We can delete posts. We can get the slug. The slug is an identifier for a blog post, but not necessarily the ID. Okay, this is going to be unique for each of those stuffs. Okay, so this is what we are going to be doing, and I don't think we are going to start that today. So this is how our folder structure is also going to look like. All right, I have let me see. Uh, okay, so I have Bawash, I have backend, I have some CSS, fonts, images, JS, SCSS. This is just some libraries that you have to load to help you do stuff. Okay, then I have the index page. Right, this index page is basic HTML and CSS, some small JavaScript. Let me show you the index page, how it looks like. Yeah, we have to design this because man, this doesn't look good, but we'll also come to that. So I can log in and I can also register. So this one basically just loads this on the same page. Okay, um, we are going to do this. So this is where we should start. And I don't know if I should create another project. Let me see. uh, Close this, and we are here. And let me also close this. So I want to try to duplicate something, right? So cd, let me go backward and code, open another editor, another VS Code window here. Let me call it Bawash 2 or Bawash 1.php or Bawash 1. And this is supposed to be a folder though. This one is going to try to open a file. Let me just make directory here. Save. Okay. KPI arrow bawash 2, and yeah, code bawash 2. So open another VS Code window, and all we are going to be doing is, okay, we'll just set the folder structure at the beginning. So I have this folder called backend. I have another folder called, try to do this fast. Okay, so my system may tend to be freezing right now. So I have this folder called backend. Let me create another one called CSS. Create another one called, let's see, images. Then another one called uh, CSS. I'm just going to follow what is there already. And another one called JS. And is there another one? Okay, so we have that. And what we want to do, we want to create index.html. Index.html. If I just make this, since we are working with PHP, let me just call it index.php, and we're going to have the same HTML script inside, right? So now most of these things I'm just going to, especially for the front end, I'm just going to copy and paste. Then when we reach at the point where we have to actually do work, then I will start coding from there. So basically the index.php, this is the content. I'm also going to try to get the images as well, access and images. Okay, so I think let me see if the images are here. I'll just copy this CSS folder the way it is. And turns out I have several windows open on my system right now, and it may just freeze. Okay, so with this right now, what we are going to be doing from class is that we are just going to build from here. I'm going to reset this back to the level where it was without any code, especially the backend code. Then what we'll be doing, we'll be seeing how to actually work on the backend code. Okay. Let me see if this works. Frozen system, I guess. Okay, guys, what I'm going to do, I think we are going to end here for today. Um, Tomorrow is like building it. I'll just customize the front end, and then we'll just start from the back end. Like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. This is the project we're going to be working on, and it's really very necessary that we all take time to actually follow it up. Okay, what's happening? So guys, like I was saying, we're going to end here. Since I'm beginning to have a frozen system, I'll try so that it doesn't freeze next time. So I think we'll see again next class, okay? If you have another question that I did not touch in this session, please you do well to inform me on Slack. Yeah, just ask your question. I'll do well to answer.